Mr. Pravin Swaney in his latest video talks about the recent meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping that happened on the sidelines of the SEO summit in China. Mr. Sawhney says that it was clear after the meeting that ties between the two countries will not be normal. They will not be strategic and the cooperation between two will be limited. And this relationship will neither be stable nor far reaching, something that neither China or Russia want. They both want a stable India China relations. We saw recently that China had proposed that India revive the RAIC format, which is Russia, India, China. The whole idea was that if there was a triangular interaction, perhaps on the sidelines of the SEO summit, then the possibility of normalization of relations between India and China, with President Putin being there in the meeting, may have been greater, but that didn't work out. Mr. Sawhney answers the question why India doesn't want normal ties with China. Let's listen into him.
The first is that the Indian government and India's top analyst, they refuse to accept that today, when a once in a century change is happening in the world, China is a great power. China today is a great power in the new world order that is emerging amongst the three great powers which are there, the other two being Russia and America. So what we see is that whenever the analysts talk about India-China relations, they always start the reference from the 80s, from the 90s, from the 2000 about India-China relations to then draw a prognosis of how things will pan out in the future. In my assessment, this is wrong.
Mr. Sawhney says that the Indian government and most of the top analysts in India, they simply refuse to acknowledge the geo-economic rise of China, and they refuse to accept that the geo-economic model of China is the one which is at the foundation of the new global governance system that we see in the world today, which is supported by both China and Russia.
If you see the Indian official press release that came out after the Modi-Xi meet, there was a very important line completely missed by the Indian analyst, and that was from the Indian side that a multipolar world and multipolar Asia befit the trends of the 21st century. Now, this is something that External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar has been repeatedly saying, that a multipolar Asia is necessary for a multipolar world. What this means was recently explained by a senior retired Indian diplomat who was also India's ambassador to China, Gautam Bambewale. He said that China wants a multipolar world but a unipolar Asia, implying that China wants to dominate India. I think this whole thinking is wrong. It's a thinking of the colonial mindset. It is a thinking which does not take into account the geo-economic rise of China and the new global order that I am talking about. Because if it was taken into account, geo-economics is about trade. And when we talk of trade, we are talking of globalization, we are talking of multilateralism. We are not talking of dominance.
Mr. Sawhney also tells us about the outcome of the meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping.
What came out in this meeting was that both the leaders agreed that what they had agreed 1 year ago at Kazan, that had been accomplished successfully. And Prime Minister Modi said that this engagement has happened. Because of that, there is peace on the line of actual control, and the task that was given to the two SRs, special representatives on border management, that too has been done. So the point here is, what is stopping then? Because after all, India has been saying that border needs to be peaceful for normal ties between India and China. So what is stopping India now?
Mr. Sawhney also answers the question why India doesn't want normal ties with China. Let's listen into him again.
I saw recently at a meeting between Jai Shankar and Wang Yi, Jai Shankar pushed the goalpost on the border issue by saying that de-escalation is the next step that needs to be taken or needs to be handled by India and China. Whereas de-escalation is not mentioned at all for border management or for peace on the border in the 10th September 2020 joint statement signed by Jai Shankar and Wang Yi, in Moscow in the presence of Sergei Lavrov. So that is pushing the goalpost. Why? Because there are two reasons India does not want normal ties with China. One is normal ties would mean that India cooperate with China. Cooperate with China in South Asia, where already, except for India and Bhutan, all the other countries are on board the Belt and Road Initiative. So, if it does not have normal ties, what that means is it can show to its own people that it is actually in a regional competition with China. The reality is that the national power of the two countries is so much apart that there is no real competition between the two. And the other reason is that if there is peace or normal ties between India and China, then obviously China will be talking about India having peace with Pakistan, which the Modi government does not want to do. So, this is the Indian perspective. As far as she was concerned,
Mr. Sawhney says that India is a country of 1.4 billion people and India is a global south nation. If it stands with RAIC, then the world will stabilize faster.
order. And as I said, India with a population of 1.4 billion people, its support becomes critical. India is a global south nation. If it stands with the RIC, then the world will stabilize faster. Of course, with normal ties between India and China, bilaterally also it is a win-win for both countries. Then they can do trade and so many other things that India can learn from China. But India, of course, does not want to do that, which is why I say that India's foreign policy needs a relook, a review, which Jay Shankar has not done.
According to Mr. Sawhney, as far as India and America relation is concerned, it's intact. Nothing has changed.
As far as India and American relations are concerned, from the Indian perspective, they are intact. Nothing has changed. The Modi government has invested so much in the last 11 years in this relationship that it is quite happy to wait out the Trump administration to once again get a strategic role from America. Until then, as the Trump administration wants, it only wants to have a transactional relationship of trade and commerce with India. India is even happy to do that, which we have seen very clearly in the 13th February 2025 statement that was signed when Prime Minister Modi visited White House and met up with President Trump.
Last but not the least, Mr. Sawhney is keeping his point of view for India that they should look on their foreign policy and make some changes.
We have seen that things are today, as far as foreign policy of India is concerned, in complete turbulence. And perhaps this should be the time to make some amends, which I do not expect the Modi government to do. Thank you so much.
Zainab Sarfraz Ahmed, Karachi, Pakistan. Ana Zainab Sarfraz Ahmed, Karachi, Pakistan.